My name's Chris, and I guess I suffer with rejection. Um, and I've suffered from this. I mean, as far as back as I can remember, I can't even remember when it started. It's been with me from since I was a little kid. And as a little kid, how it kind of manifested itself is kind of in like a perfectionist type of way in like sports and schooling and competition type things. But in my relationships, um, I felt inadequate all the time. I was friends with all of I felt like who were the cool kids, but I never felt like that's where I belonged. I always felt like I was very separate from them. I felt like they just kind of kept me around because whatever. But um, and that's kind of followed me all throughout my life. And in high school, I got really heavily involved into drugs, and that kind of helped me like subdue like the perfectionist side of things. But as far as my relationships went, it really only exacerbated the feelings of inadequacy and just that constant feeling like an outsider. And so, you know, I was able to I eventually got help and got clean off of drugs. And, after, yeah, thank you for the applaud back there. Um, uh, so after I got clean and I went to rehab and I came down to Dallas to a halfway house. And in there, that's kind of where I started to learn about God and ultimately who Jesus is, and that was a huge step. But I didn't know what this rejection was. I didn't know how to address that, and so once I graduated from the halfway house, I got enrolled at UTA, which is where I met my lovely wife Haley. Um, and so the first couple years of marriage, rejection it didn't really affect us. I'd heard a lot of sermons where they would talk about how you were always going to fall short in your marriage. And so, I felt like the feelings of being an inadequate husband were just like a normal thing. That's just something that happens. And going into year three, um, it just kept building and building and building, and it finally hit kind of like a peak in year three, and it just accompanied with some serious insecurities. I started believing lies that Haley didn't love me. I started believing lies that she was ultimately going to leave me for someone else. She would say certain things to where she would say, "Oh, I love you," and I would not even be able to comprehend the truth in it. It felt like an obligatory statement of you're just saying that because you're my wife. Like that's not a true thing. And so ultimately we were able to sit down with an amazing couple at the church and kind of tell them our situation, and they referred us to Miss Terry Fusilier, and kind of introduced us to some freedom sessions to where we met with Terry as a group and then did some one-on-one sessions, and Terry was able to say, hey, y'all both got some stuff that you need to break free from. And so once I got through the freedom sessions, it's almost like a veil had been pulled away from my eyes. I was I was able to see more clearly, or like a new filter had been put on my hearing. Like I was able to hear things more clearly. If Haley said something, I would no longer hear those thoughts of inadequacy, or if I did hear them, I was able to know that that's not from God, that's from the enemy, and really make that distinction. And so. So yeah, I mean, it's ultimately I think what that and our marriage is doing amazing now. So it's a good thing. But through this whole process, I feel like God has. I feel like in my head, I knew that God was good. I knew that God was for me. I heard that in sermons all the time, and so it made sense. But like after going through this process, I feel like I know those things in my heart. Like I feel like it has now become very apparent, and it's been incredible. So, thank you.